Two. Okay, my mic was not working. Fair enough. Fair enough, game. I mean, life, whatever. Ryan, not dinner time yet. Go get dinner in a minute. Actually, let me just get. Okay. Alright. I'm scared time. Ryan's bed. The new angry video game nerd out? What the fuck? I mean, new analog horror we'll watch later. I need to do my dungeon. Anyway. Toddler fatally shoots himself after finding gun in couch cushion. Principal gun control laws that probably wouldn't have happened. Been less likely. Ryan, go eat. What are you doing, Orion? Let's watch the new AVGN.
Hey, remember when the first PlayStation came out? Remember when they needed some new hip mascot to take on Mario? Well, that's where Crash Bandicoot came in. Now, while he was never the official mascot, he definitely made a mark. Since the first Crash Bandicoot game was released, 30 years ago if you can believe, he's been all over magazine covers and commercials. Before the Geico Gecko, or the Caveman for that matter, there was a guy in a Crash Bandicoot costume heckling Nintendo outside their corporate offices with a megaphone.
Mustache Man, your worst nightmare has arrived. Pack up your stuff!
What an asshole. Sony and the team from Naughty Dog worked together on the design of the character, and the mission was the same as Sonic, Gex, Bubsy, and all the rest. Beat Mario with an edgy character. I mean, Mario didn't have a floating witch doctor head guiding him around. And the past 30 years, there's been a shitload of these games. Trying to figure out which ones are good and which ones suck is going to be like walking blindfolded and barefoot through a room splattered with alternating piles of jello and dog shit.
Crash 4 is great.
Since I've never dove into Crash Bandicoot games before, I'm going to need some guidance from somebody who's experienced in this topic. All right, we're back. Time to start the review. Now...
Sponsor? Money? That's something that I like. Who's the sponsor?
You're a little late.
Okay, cool. I'm out.
As you can see, it's trying to be cutting edge with its 3D visuals, and for the most part, it plays pretty well. Your main method of attack is spinning, so I guess because a bandicoot is an animal that's native to Australia, they're probably thinking it's like those Tasmanian devils, because those things are always spinning, right? Yeah, you ever go to Australia? You ever see the animals spinning around? Kangaroos and koala bears are always spinning. No, I guess they just saw the Tasmanian devil cartoons and copied that. Marsupials see, marsupial do. That's the most awkward thing I've ever said.
No
okay, so the penguins in Crash Bandicoot 2 spin. So are the penguins Australian now?
Hey, Australian guy.
Yes?
You're Australian, right?
Yes, I am.
Let me ask you, do the animals in Australia spin?
Yes.
Do the toilets spin the wrong way?
I don't know. I don't usually make a habit of watching it leave after I'm done.
I've seen dogs spin around before they sit down, so if any character should spin, it should be Beethoven on Super Nintendo. That game would be vastly improved if Beethoven could spin.
Ooh, I nearly died.
Most of this game is alright,
nearly
but it
died.
sucks whenever you have to run toward the
bridge level's
camera,
awful.
like this boulder scene right out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Cool idea, but you can't see what you're running into and have no time to react. Ah!
You know what?
At least Indy could see what was in front of him. Imagine how differently that scene would play if he was blindly ramming into shit.
Why does
Some
they keep
areas,
wanting
they
to
have
put
you
that
riding a
ring
hog.
on?
Maybe this was Sony's response to the rhino friend Rambi in Donkey Kong Country. Or even Yoshi, honestly. But the weird thing is, before he
choker.
mounts the hog, Crash looks at the camera and makes this creepy face. Like, yeah, I'm gonna ride that fucking hog. What's his deal? By the way, jumping sucks. You have to be so precise that most of the time you're going to be watching your shadow instead of the actual character. If I wanted to watch a little black circle move across the screen all
edge
day,
levels are
I'd watch a
awful.
hockey game.
Oh, and this bridge stage really fucking sucks. I mean, every
it does.
misstep causes
Yeah, it
Crash to
does.
fall to his doom. Fuck!
But now, let's get to the real shit. The save system. And by that, I mean there is no system. Take a guess how to save. Take a wild guess. Would you just bring up the menu and hit save? No, that would be too easy. Do you have to find a save point? No, too cliche. Does it auto-save after you complete the level? No, don't be ridiculous.
Of course not. Don't be ridiculous.
But thankfully, there are multiple ways you can save in this game. Here they are. A. Collect 3 symbols which activate a bonus area, and if you complete that bonus
In
area
the
without
remakes,
dying,
they just
it'll save.
save.
B. Go back and refight a boss in which you might die anyway. And C. Get full completion on a level without dying once and find every single hidden item. The problem with option C is that certain boxes don't show up until you've found these
Slicing
colored
things.
gems. It's kind of like Super Mario World, you know, with the colored switches that make certain blocks appear. But even worse, these gems don't start showing up until stage 10. I mean, just to find them, you'd have to shell out 20 extra bucks on a strategy guide. Now that's a real shitty thing to have to do. In short, it's probably the worst save system I've ever seen. Even worse than Gex. I'm not saying it has to save every single step you take. I mean, setting you back a little is fine and dandy, but this miserable
Gather
fuckheap takes it to the
mushroom.
absolute extreme. One time I was on stage
Oh, I
12,
see.
and I got sent all the way back to stage 6.
Oh, fuck.
That's worse than Ninja Gaiden! You can't even re-enter a stage to farm extra lives, because they disappear from the crates once you get them. So your only other options are A. Kill 100 bats, which takes forever. B. Pull off a precisely timed spin jump onto a turtle, which is more likely to kill you. And C. Go fuck yourself. Overall, this isn't the worst game I've ever played, by any stretch. The graphics are nice, and the majority of the levels are fun to play, but no proper save? Come
Fuck the
on.
Brit.
And by the way, the name of the witch doctor head following you around is Aku Aku, and since he's a main character throughout the series, I guess I'm gonna have to get used to that guy.
Man, if only I had a floating head to help guide me through these games.
Hello, I'm Wanku Wanku, the mascot of the British Museum. Do you want to see some
Let's go.
stolen Egyptian hair?
What's the C stand for?
That is none of your goddamn business.
Okay.
Well, he's
All right,
Australian.
look, I could use some help. Which Crash game should I play next? Should I just do 2?
Crash 2 is classic shit. Great movement, great music, and the greatest final boss fight of all time. But I don't know what you're looking for. Don't put this pressure on me. What if I'm wrong and you shout at me? I'm very sensitive.
Okay, should I skip the 3?
That's my favorite one. It's actually the first video game
Crash
I ever
3
played.
is great.
I'm younger than you. So give that one a go. You might like it. Or you won't. Whatever. I don't care.
Well, unless they're bad, I think I'm gonna move on. How's Crash Team Racing?
Have you played Mario Kart?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's the same idea. You put a load of abused animals in cars and send them around a track without any driving licenses, like the circus. But unlike earlier Mario Kart, it's way more aggressive and chaotic. And it had the jump drifting and triple turbo boost system, which takes it from a rip-off to a rip-on. It's got a story mode with shit to collect, it's got missiles, it's got eyebrows. Basically,
pretty
it's
fun.
great, so I don't think you'll want to play it. Why not? What do you want? Who are you?
Okay. Well, on that note, I'm gonna play Crash Bash. Is that a fine choice?
A fine choice for something good or something shit? Are you looking for something bad? Oh my god, put it in, play it, now, go, do it.
Okay. Is that Donkey Kong? It's like Donkey Kong.
You win.
What? I don't know.
So, Crash Bash continues to rip off Nintendo. This time it's a clone of Mario Party. It's basically a bunch of mini-games featuring an all-star lineup of Crash characters.
Come on.
But wait,
Let's
who's
go.
Rilla-Roo? I don't remember a gorilla, kangaroo, mutant hybrid wearing pants
Looks like
in the other
Donkey Kong
games.
with a tail.
Alright, so I get the idea. It's a bunch of shitty mini games. What's next?
Well, that was the first game not developed by Naughty Dog. They moved on to greener pastures.
And I moved on to greener beers. Cheers. Ah, what the fuck?
I don't like beer.
Then have some
Australia.
Oh, what? Because I'm British?
tea. You want it or not?
That
Yes.
means Australia.
Ah!
I guess
I don't like
Australia and something.
Okay, what game are we playing? How about Wrath of Cortex?
If you want.
British, Australian.
Some guide you are.
Okay, Wrath of Cortex on PS2. So the main villain, Dr. Neo Cortex, has made a clone of Crash named Crunch the Super Bandit. You know he's tough because he has a metal arm, is triple Crash's size, and has the word super in his name. Thanks to these elemental masks he wears, he just sort of becomes generic bosses like the Water Boss, Fire Boss, and Wind Boss. That's it. The Water Boss has
Pretty
you
great.
memorizing patterns. Jump over this, duck under that. But if you mess up even once, then you die and have to redo the entire fight. The Fire Boss, same shit. But he's got the added bonus of shitting out tiny lava rocks that roll into you, and each of those can kill you in one hit. Unless by some miracle you avoid all these obstacles, these boss fights require you to play over and over again just to learn the patterns. They aren't even that complicated. It's just that everything kills Crash in one hit, so one fuck-up means the end of a run. Okay, so other than the boss battles, it's a pretty generic Crash game that sticks to the basic formula for the most part.
Well, I guess you can say these games have become somewhat of a cash grab.
Hi. Guess who I am?
Cash. Blue.
I'm Cash Bandy Loot.
Oh, that's clever. I guess I'm gonna play Crash Twin Sanity.
Throw us a quid, mate.
Okay, Crash Twin Sanity. Oh boy. This is just like those Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead games where you beat your opponents to death with your friend. Yeah, just like how Stimpy uses Ren to bludgeon enemies to death, Crash uses Dr. Cortex to do the same damn thing. Wait, Crash and his mortal enemy,
Valid.
the evil scientist that created him, mind you, are friends now?
Trust me, we're pals, right?
Crash does use Cortex as a hammer on a surfboard and can throw him over gaps to hit switches, so I guess it's an abusive relationship at best.
Ah! Not the bears!
Well, at least Cortex can dish out some damage of his own to Crash. By spanking him? Huh?
Well, I need some real shit to sink my teeth into. So how about Crash the Titans? Get it? Crash the Titans?
Boo bee. Boo. Boo 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 boo. Boo.
Gotta break out the Wii. You know, the Wii turns 20 this year. Isn't that crazy?
That
the
is-
Wii is almost
I did
old
not
enough
need to
drink.
hear that.
Boo. Beep beep boo. Boo boo bee boo. Boo.
I
bee,
did
boo,
not
boo.
need to hear
Boo
that.
bee. Just boo bee.
Wait, you're saying the Wii is already old enough to drink? Ah, fuck!
Oh, now I gotta find some batteries for the Wiimote. Good thing I have die-hard batteries. Yippee double A, motherfucker! Crash of the Titans is one of those sequels that only gets made because some fucker owns an IP and doesn't want to lose the rights. I mean, I can't think of any other reason why this game had to be Crash Bandicoot themed. It barely feels like a Crash game. Sure, you can play as the titular character,
Alright.
titular, but you wouldn't even recognize the other characters because they're all redesigned. I mean, look what they did with Tiny Tiger. That hovering almond dripped in shit is actually supposed to be Aku Aku. I mean, did they keep anything from the original design? Besides the feathers? Not to mention, Crash is speaking in complete gibberish. He's made the full transformation into the Tasmanian Devil. But actually, no. He doesn't have the spin attack anymore. Well, he does acquire the spin later, but that would be like if Mario couldn't jump until he got the jump ability. Or if you're playing a Castlevania game with no whip. Oh, wait, that actually happened. And it worked somehow. Either way, turning a character's signature move into something you have to unlock is straight up sacrilegious. What were they thinking? You unlock new abilities by collecting blue gems called Mojo. So, by having to power up Crash's abilities, we can all assume that at some point, Crash lost his mojo.
Crikey! I've lost my mojo!
Instead of focusing on challenging platforming like the previous games, Crash the Titans decide to go all in on never-ending button-mashing battles against wave after wave of enemies. And look, I get trying something different every once in a while, so that doesn't get stale. But when 2 out of the last 3 games in the series were spin-off kart racers with middling reviews, you'd think they'd make sure to go back to basics, right? No, we had to wait 13 years for that. The game's big gimmick is that Crash can mount the larger monsters and use them as his bitch in combat. But that sounds so fucking wrong, doesn't it? But get this, they call it jacking. Jacking! I'm not making this up. You jack the monster. The fuck is that supposed to mean? Is it like hijacking a car? I mean, okay, I sorta get it. But you'd think they'd call it something better than jacking. That's such low-hanging fruit. I don't even know what to do with it. You're pretty much forced to do this every single battle. It's easier said than done. You have to stun the monsters by making their star meters go up. Seems simple, but half the time they block your attack. And they keep recovering stars. And then they kick your ass. Most of my attacks don't do diddly dick against these guys. So you have to charge your attack by holding the button. But 9 times out of 10, that leaves you open to get hit. These enemies are not just going to stand there and let you charge up. No fucking way. They just rip Crash a new asshole. Fuck! When you finally do manage to jack one of these motherfuckers, it can feel like the ultimate power trip. Now you're the one in control. You gain access to all the monster's abilities and do things like this. And this. Oh,
That's what,
and how
like,
about
Cameo
this?
is like.
It's
Anyone
admittedly a
remember
lot of
Cameo?
fun. At first. Who wouldn't
Xbox
like riding a
360
giant
launch
elephant that
title?
can not only destroy every obstacle in your way, but can also blow fire out its trunk? Or look at this giant skunk dude. He's literally throwing his farts. Throwing his farts. Gotta love that. But once you've jacked your 90th palette-swapped werewolf, the idea of jacking another creature loses a lot of its appeal. It also just sounds plain rude. What's this? I'm in a bathroom? There's a monster in the stall? I mean, should I even fight him or just leave him alone and let him do his business? Would this be a time for jacking? Since it's the Wii version, of course they had to make some of Crash's moves require motion controls, like this spinning propeller move that allows you to hover over wide gaps. To spin, they want you to shake the Wiimote. Yeah, shake that Wii! Or you can just hit A. So there's no fucking point to using the Wiimote. I mean, you want to play with your Wii? Be my guest.
Jack.
Yeah, so the motion controls are optional. What's the deal with the nunchuck anyway? How about just have a regular controller? Only Nintendo could get away with this shit. Is there a motion control for the jacking? You can only imagine. But no, just use the button commands. However, once you've jacked a monster, their abilities almost exclusively require motion controls.
Come on.
So now they're required, and if you don't use them, you instantly get your ass kicked. You can even use the Wiimote to collect mojo just by pointing at it. Super Mario Galaxy did the same thing later that year, so I have to wonder, who had the idea first? Now, sucking up all the mojo makes it super easy to get any of them that are out of reach. I mean, with just one flick of your wrist, you can get them all. It's so easy now, it pretty much breaks the game. Yeah, now I'm playing with power. Wiimote mojo power. You know, you want to make it even easier? Keep jacking monsters and sucking up mojo. You'll be learning abilities in no time. You're also going to get major carpal tunnel syndrome. Basically, you can really cheat the system in this game. And I'm not even talking about grinding. You can do that too, but now you feel like the kid at the bowling party who just runs up the lane and smashes all the pins down. So there's a kick move called the Norris Roundhouse. Now, of course, it's a reference to the late Chuck Norris. Rest in peace. But let's talk about that spin move again. Now, for the most part, I found it pretty useless. You gotta spin the stick on the nunchuck repeatedly while tapping the C button, and then if you do it for too long, you get dizzy and can't move for a few seconds. I mean, what the hell? But once you've leveled up enough, you can spin indefinitely. So now, all of a sudden, it's the best move in the game. Well, that is until you realize the bigger monsters still block the spin. And since you have to keep rotating the stick till your thumb goes raw, I'd say forget about it. It's ass.
All right, one more game. This one's going to be on Game Boy Advance. Purple Ripto's Rampage. Yeah, and this one is apparently it's a crossover with Spyro the Dragon. It's a sad state of affairs when both franchises can take a crossfire shit into the same toilet.
Huh. Yeah. Crossovers really suck, don't they?
You know, I've had it up to my ass with this shit. Crash Bandicoot's Purple Ripto's Rampage on Game Boy Advance. When will this end? What crocodile's ass did these games crawl out of? Okay, well, you have the spin attack already. Well, maybe this game will be alright. Or not. After a pretty lackluster platforming section, you're riding a polar bear, which is just a 2D version of a stage from Crash 2. Okay, now I'm blowing up sheep with a bazooka?
Game Boy Advance
I'm not sure
was
what
like
this has to
a
do with
really
Crash
fucking
Bandicoot,
good
but
game. Like,
sure,
really,
why
really
not? Eat this! Ba Black Sheep, have you any rocket to the face? Okay, maybe this is awesome. Wait, I jinxed it again. You heard of tank controls? Well, here's tank controls. In a tank! These controls suck fucking monkey fuck. And besides, it has nothing to do with Crash Bandicoot. I'm sorry. I already complained so much, I take it all back. This is the real bullshit. Oh my god, it's getting worse. Now I'm in a Christmas ball with robotic legs, but I'm controlling a helicopter? Why not just have the helicopter? Do I have to control Crash, controlling a robot, controlling a helicopter? Do you think that's a little excessive? What's this shitload of fuck? I'm riding a lazy river? Except there's nothing lazy about it other than the lazy game design. And when our star heroes finally meet, do they embrace in a hug? No. They start throwing Molotov cocktails at each other. Yeah, that'll get the job done. Also, this game's rated E for everyone. Hey kids, ever heard of Molotov cocktails? Well, you have now. You're welcome. Oh, and now it's just Arkanoid, basically? They just repackaged old shit. They fucking shat into a sack of shit, and then it sat until it got nasty as ass, and then they stuffed that fuck into another sack of shit and sat it on top of a putrid pile of piss packages. Diuretic rivulets running off the tip of the turberg. They stacked another sack of ass on top of the already shitty shit pile of shit sacks, and next thing you know, you got a steaming pile of shit sacks stacked up, and I didn't even know they stacked shit that high. Fuck this game.
Is the review done?
Yeah, it's done.
Okay, bye.
Wait. You're just gonna go like that? Huh. Well, that's an abrupt way to end.
Goodbye, Carrie Poppins. Don't stay away too long.
Not a great crossover, but surprised he hadn't done Crash Bandicoot late. Or is found in dark web marketplaces.
It's summer 2022, and 27-year-old Reed Churchill is doing what he does best, playing tennis. The Arkansas native has shaped his life around the sport, having won several major tournaments and even once finished in the top 70 in the Southern Division of the U.S. Tennis Association a national caliber ranking for junior players. After studying sports management in university, he got a job working for the Summerhill Racket Club in Fayetteville, teaching tennis at every level. In this particular game, however, Reed would sustain an injury, one that we don't know the exact nature of. What we do know is that it left him with chronic pain. Seeking relief, he decided to turn to the internet. But not the World Wide Web we all know and use every day. No, Reed turned to the dark web. He loaded up a special web browser called Tor, one that's capable of accessing the dark web, and found a marketplace. However, he had to make an account before he could see what was available, a lengthy process that involved mandatory two-factor authentication and even setting up PGP encryption. After about an hour of setup time, Reed was in, and he began combing through the listings, eventually settling on a bottle of oxycodone pills, a behind-the-counter painkiller commonly prescribed to those with acute musculoskeletal pain. He fills out a short form and then hits order, hopeful that the medication will help him feel normal again. Sometime later, maybe days, possibly months, Reed's father David arrives at his door. He rings the bell, but his son doesn't let him in. Concerned, he uses his key and comes in anyways. He calls out, but his son doesn't answer. He wonders if he simply isn't home. But that thought is soon erased when he walks into the living room. There, Reed is all splayed out, half on the couch, half on the floor. His skin is cold and his body is stiff. There's no question about it. He's dead. After an autopsy, authorities would find fentanyl in Reed's system. The pills he bought on the dark web were laced with the incredibly dangerous substance. It would take a few years of intensive investigation, but the FBI's Joint Criminal Opioid and Darknet Enforcement Unit would eventually identify the marketplace Reed had ordered his medication from, a platform called Incognito, one of the largest dark web narcotics bazaars ever operated. It had been live since 2020, offering users all manner of illicit substances. There was one rule though: no fentanyl. The substance was simply too dangerous. Miscalculating a dose even slightly was enough to kill somebody. Still though, counterfeit meds that were nothing more than fentanyl-laced substances masquerading as legitimate prescription medicine was a problem on the site, and enforcement from the platform's admins on this particular issue was poor. Keep that thought in mind for later. The main admin on the site was a user named Pharaoh. Not much was known about him. The platform he had designed had security and privacy ingrained in every corner of it, but that wouldn't stop the FBI from finding weak spots. Specifically, authorities were able to trace several large crypto transfers from some of the market's known wallets to a personal account at a centralized crypto exchange. If you've ever dealt in crypto before, you'll know that these massive exchanges require a lot of personal information, even copies of passports and other forms of photo ID. This would end up being Pharaoh's downfall, whose real name was Rayxiong Lin. He was a Taiwanese man and was shockingly only 23 years old at the time he was identified in 2024, meaning he was only 19 when he started one of the dark web's largest drug markets. Sensing the authorities were closing in on him, Lin would execute an exit scam on Incognito. This is fairly common on the dark web. Most marketplaces operate on crypto, and transactions usually happen through an escrow wallet owned by the marketplace. Without any rules or regulations, and with the people operating these platforms being anonymous criminals, many dark web marketplaces end when the person operating them decides to shut everything down and run away with all the crypto in the escrow wallet. In Incognito's case, Lin managed to steal at least $1 million worth of user deposits according to the DOJ. But he didn't stop there. Despite claiming to have built Incognito with security and privacy in mind, Lin, in reality, had been secretly collecting all user data on the site, including private messages, transaction info, and order details. He threatened to publish it all to the internet if vendors didn't pay him a ransom. It wouldn't matter though, because Lin would be arrested on May 18th, 2024, and authorities would seize the entire Incognito database he had copied, giving them ample evidence to go after and arrest the vendor that had sold Reed Churchill the pills that had killed him. His father, David, would give a tear-filled testimony at Lynn's sentencing hearing in February 2026, labeling the day he discovered his son's body as the worst day of his life. He would look Lynn in the eyes and state,
"Remember this face while you're in a cell."
Minutes after David's testimony, however, something would be revealed that would turn this entire case upside down. A detail that would bring into question the entire legitimacy of the FBI's investigation. After David left the stand, Lynn's defense attorneys would drop a bombshell. Lynn didn't run incognito alone. He had several moderators working with him, each of which had varying levels of power on the marketplace, which had moved more than $100 million worth of product in his lifespan. According to court filings, one of these moderators that allegedly held more power than the rest was working for the FBI. That's right, the FBI had an informant high up in incognito, and according to Lynn,
they were essentially managing the site. They handled daily operations and every facet you would expect from an administrator lacking technical expertise.
Lynn alleged that while he managed the technical side of the site, the informant ran the day-to-day operations, something supported in their communications with the FBI, with the informant themselves stating that they personally oversaw 95% of the transactions on the site. In fact, the FBI informant had the explicit authority to remove any vendor they caught selling fentanyl, but they not only chose not to do that, but they even reportedly engaged in several debates with Lynn on the issue of fentanyl, allegedly advocating to get the very dangerous substance unbanned from the marketplace. The prosecution would argue that this was all necessary for the authorities to build a chain of evidence that would eventually lead to Farrow being unmasked and charged, and they'd also insist that Lynn was the ultimate decision maker on the site. But the judge would express a decent amount of skepticism about why the FBI allowed the operation to continue as long as it did, after they had already infiltrated the site's upper management. Lynn's defense would state that this informant may have even had a role in the sale of the exact pills that killed Reed Churchill, but it wouldn't do much for Lynn. He'd be sentenced to 30 years in prison, and as of July 2026, he plans to appeal, the existence of the FBI informant being central to his planned defense. Picture this. A grieving father walks into a courtroom to confront the man responsible for his son's death. He delivers the most emotionally devastating statement of the entire hearing, and then has to sit and learn that the US government itself had an embedded agent apparently personally running the platform. What do you think his reaction may have been? We don't know what went through David's head in that moment. He's never commented publicly on the revelation of the FBI informant. But we do know one thing. Dark web marketplaces have resulted in all manner of horrors, and many of them aren't exactly what you would expect. The American government didn't just have an agent helping to run a digital drug marketplace. They were also the ones who created the dark web in the first place. Back in the 1990s, while the internet was exploding in popularity, the US government wanted to find a way to use this new technology to allow spies operating in foreign countries to phone home. The problem is, the internet wasn't secure enough for these sorts of communications, so the US Naval Research Laboratory developed something called onion routing, a technique for anonymous communication over a network that involves wrapping data in several layers of encryption that gets bounced between different network nodes, each one peeling away a layer of the encryption. This was and is the basic technology that the dark web is built upon. Websites are long addresses built from random alphanumeric characters derived from cryptographic keys, and they all end in the .onion domain. In the early 2000s, the US government would publicly release the Tor network, something we now call the dark web. If you're wondering why the USA would want regular people using something like the dark web, the explanation was actually simple. If only spies were using something like Tor and accessing Onion websites, then it would be quite easy for foreign adversaries to discover them by merely looking for any and all Onion traffic. It didn't matter if they couldn't read it or see where it was going, just finding evidence of any Onion traffic would be enough to know that there was a spy somewhere. But that wouldn't be the case if everyday people were using the dark web. The increased level of noise would allow agents to blend into the crowd, and finding Onion traffic wouldn't necessarily be a digital paper trail leading back to some foreign operative. So the US government unleashed the dark web onto the world. And guess what it almost immediately became known for?
Child porn.
As you can imagine, there's a reason the dark web earned its name. The majority of onion websites are illicit in some fashion, with the biggest category of illegal websites being drug marketplaces. The second largest category, however, is illicit finance. Hydra is a marketplace that once operated in this category. While you could also find illicit substances here too, this Russian platform offered many other different categories of products, including stolen credit cards, bank credentials, forged passports, and even physical cash, both counterfeit and real.
I figured it would have been like
The site also
child
had a
porn
unique
or some
innovation.
shit, but I
Instead
guess
of
that makes
operating on
sense.
traditional courier services like other marketplaces, Hydra instead operated its own dead drop system. Cladmen, low-paid independent couriers, would pick up packages and bury them in parks, place them under benches, tape them to the inside of garbage bins. If you bought something on Hydra, you would receive a set of GPS coordinates and a photo of the hiding spot where your package was waiting for you. The Clad system made Hydra incredibly difficult for the authorities to prosecute, but just like Incognito, it too would eventually fall, being taken offline in 2022 after German authorities seized the platform's infrastructure. Between Hydra and Incognito, you can get a rough idea as to the source of offerings you can find on the dark web. It mostly comes down to drugs and stolen/forged goods. But that's what you can find on the big platforms, the Goliaths that process millions or even billions of dollars and then eventually get taken down by the authorities. What about the smaller platforms? Are there websites on the dark web that offer a more
Probably worse.
niche selection? In mid-2026, open source intelligence researchers working for the magazine India Today would come across a strange set of websites on the dark web. They were all marketplaces, but they weren't selling narcotics or forged documents. The prices for these items were much higher, tens of thousands of dollars even. What could cost so much money on the dark
Well, I
web?
bet I know.
Human liver for sale.
Oh,
Human
body
lungs for sale.
harvest.
Human
Organ
heart for
harvesting.
sale.
These sites were all claiming to offer real human organs for exorbitant prices. The global illicit organ trade is huge, with 5 to 10% of transplanted kidneys worldwide being, quote-unquote, illegally acquired. The intelligence team decided to pose as a buyer seeking a kidney in India. They began the purchase process, and the seller quickly moved the conversation over to Telegram, the private messaging app of choice for organized crime worldwide. The seller claimed to have what they described as a fresh harvest kidney, available within a 24-hour window, and later offered a live matching donor in Delhi, supposedly a 24-year-old male with O negative blood. The seller quoted the intelligence team $50,000, which they claimed covered surgery, hospital stay, airport pickup, and even donor compensation. The seller then demanded a $2,000 deposit in the form of Bitcoin to reserve the donor, with the remaining balance being payable after the transplant was complete. India Today would reach out to a selection of doctors who all said that no hospital in the country would be legally able to accommodate a procedure like this, and the likelihood of an entire hospital being complicit in a major crime like this was essentially zero.
Gotta go in the
The
back alley.
researchers would continue to speak to the seller, who provided the name of a Mumbai-based urologist. That was the end of the information drop, however. The seller wasn't going to give up anything more until they got their $2,000 in Bitcoin. The research team was able to match the name of the doctor given by the seller to a real urologist working for a private hospital, but they weren't able to verify whether or not it was the same doctor the seller was referring to.
Now are we?
The India Today investigation was left without a definitive answer as to the legitimacy of these marketplaces, but the dark web monitoring and security firm Dark Owl would reach a conclusion about similar platforms back in 2023. They too would find several sites claiming to offer human organs for sale
Come on,
for similar
Alliance A.
prices as the platforms India Today investigated. While they didn't contact any sellers, they were able to piece together the truth by analyzing the sites themselves. For one thing, many of them seem to state that human organs are viable outside the body for an entire year, a claim that is scientifically impossible. Moreover, many of these sites use the same stock images of organs. They also analyzed the Bitcoin address listed on one site. The total amount it's received in his life was $34,000, but it was currently sitting at $0 at the time of Dark Owl's investigation. The majority of transactions on that address were only between $1 to $200, far below the tens of thousands of dollars the items on the site were listed for. By the way, check out this screenshot they took. Why is this the image the platform decided to use? The listing is for a human heart from Central America. Is this some sort of mistake? In the same investigation, Dark Owl would also uncover a marketplace that claimed to sell human meat, apparently sourced from morgues and road accidents, according to the website. The conclusion reached by Dark Owl and other security firms who have investigated platforms like this is that the majority of dark web marketplaces claiming to offer human organs for sale are nothing but scams.
For a second.
Think about it. What's an easier operation to run? Selling actual human organs on the internet, which involve incredibly complex logistics and sophisticated skilled work requiring all manner of seasoned professionals, or just scamming people who are looking for organs out of a bit of crypto. That's the thing about the dark web. You hear all sorts of stories about the scary things you can find for sale, but a lot of it just isn't real. In fact, the vast majority of marketplaces on the dark web are outright scams. It's much harder to find a legitimate platform offering real things. In fact, sometimes you can't even be sure if the legitimate platform you're using is real or not. Because onion links are in the form of random characters, it's very easy to make a fake version of an existing platform to pass off as a real thing, with unsuspecting users not noticing that the URL is different. Yes, scams are the most common form of illicit activity happening on the dark web, but no scam has been quite as notorious and dangerous as hitmen for hire.
What Tiger King used killed Carol Baskins.
The idea of hiring a hitman through the internet is almost
Remember
as old
Tiger
as the
King?
World Wide Web itself.
5,000 years ago?
In 1995, former
During the
Intel
beginning of
engineer
COVID?
Jim Bell wrote a series of essays titled Assassination Politics. It outlined a potential internet platform that could offer bounties on public officials, which would be crowdfunded by disgruntled citizens. A user could anonymously propose someone to be killed, offer a dollar amount, and could even make a prediction on whether or not the bounty would be successful, a precursor to the actual prediction markets that exist today. The assassination part of the platform, though, would never come to fruition. In 2013, the platform outlined by Bell would actually be attempted by a dark web user calling themselves Kuwabataka Sanjuro, naming themselves after the conniving Ronin from the 1961 Kurosawa movie Yojimbo. Their platform would collect bounties on public officials at the highest level, some of them as large as $75,000. Sanjuro's assassination market would garner a lot of buzz in the mainstream media, but it would ultimately fail to lead to any known killings. Sanjuro would eventually cash out $1 million from the platform and then take it offline in 2018, rendering the entire thing a scam. That's how the story tends to go. A site claiming to offer some sort of hitman service pops up, and it either ends up being a scam or some sort of FBI honeypot. The most infamous of these sites is a 2015 platform called Besa Mafia. They claim to be the official online presence of the Albanian Mafia, providing services in every corner of the world. They supposedly offered everything from getting someone beat up to a professional ex-military sniper hit, an option suitable for anybody from CEOs to small celebrities, according to them.
Pretty certain this is what Tiger
apparently
King
much different than a basic hitman, which only costs $5,000. This cheaper alternative is supposedly carried out by a local gang member that, quote-unquote, did murder before. They even have the decency to avoid booking expensive hotels, and they don't even smoke at the scene of the crime. But keep in mind that they can only hit normal people. It's a little hard to believe that anybody could take something like this seriously. It reads like something a kid would write. It wasn't written by a kid though, it was conceptualized by somebody going by the name of Yura. Believed to be an Albanian man living in Romania, leaked admin messages from the site would reveal that Yura once stated that the platform's secret purpose was to scam criminals out of their money and to report potential murders to the police.
They were the good guys.
Whether he intended to make good on that last part is uncertain, as in 2016, a cybercrime researcher named Chris Montero would discover the site, as well as several critical security flaws. He was able to get in and read every single customer interaction on the platform, over 3,000 messages. From this, he was able to extrapolate that the Besa Mafia had actually received 38 real and paid-for kill orders, complete with details and pictures of the potential victims. Some of these stories were incredibly disturbing, like that of John Musbach. This New Jersey man had previously been charged with a heinous and unmentionable crime in 2015. A year later, he would pay 40 bitcoins to the Besa Mafia to have his young victim assassinated before he stood trial. He'd eventually be sentenced to 38 months in federal prison for the conspiracy. Over the next decade, Montero and his team would continue their investigation, uncovering several other hitman for hire platforms operated by Yura, each with their own exploitable security flaws.
Okay.
They'd eventually
Maybe that's
uncover
just a
more than
catch-all
1,000
name.
verified kill orders.
Thought there was like
In
an actual
2022,
platform
the
called
Romanian
Hitman for
authorities
Hire.
would crack down on the Besa Mafia, raiding 7 houses and arresting 5 men. It's unknown whether Yura was among them. Some of the hits uncovered by Chris and his team would lead to real legal charges being brought against those who had ordered them. Some of them would even foreshadow real murders. There is one case, though, in the recovered archives of the Besa Mafia that just doesn't make any sense. Brian Njoroge was a U.S. military serviceman stationed in Kentucky.
Alright.
Born in
Get the
1996, he supposedly had a very active social media presence and was of Kenyan descent. In early June 2018, he was on leave and had booked a trip to Clarksville, Indiana, opting to stay in an Airbnb. Little did he know that someone had taken out a hit on him. On May 29th, a user going by the name Toonbib would contact an administrator on the Besa Mafia website. They transferred around $5,500 worth of Bitcoin into the platform's wallet and outlined that they wanted Brian dead. They attached a yearbook photo of him and the address of the Airbnb he was staying at, mentioning that he would be there from June 1st to 11th. The administrator would respond stating that they would assign an
Alliance,
operative and the job would be done in a week. But Toonbib
What
would
are
never
you
respond.
doing?
This would be the end of the interaction. On June 9th, a man walking his dog in Clarksville would notice something odd lying under the bleachers in a local baseball field. He'd walk a little closer to get a better look, only to find that it was a human body. The police are called and the corpse is identified as Brian Njoroge. They'd run an investigation and would piece together that Brian had stolen a gun from a nearby shooting range the previous day and had taken it to the baseball field to end it all. The coroner would then rule that the death resulted from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and the case would be closed within days.
Cool.
The lead detective would state that he had been aware of the hit bought on the dark web, but ultimately disregarded it as there was no factual evidence to suggest anyone other than Brian being involved in this case. The kill order wasn't the only suspicious piece of evidence. When the police searched Njoroge's home, they'd find that his computer, camera, and 2 smartphones were all missing. They'd never be recovered. Neither would the bullet that killed Brian, which was never located by police. Even more questionable, however, was Brian's life insurance policy. It was worth $400,000, and just 1 month before his death, he had switched the beneficiary from his parents to a female friend. This friend has never been publicly identified, but many speculate that it could potentially be the Toonbib that ordered a hit from the Besa Mafia. They clearly knew intimate details about his life, right down to the address of the Airbnb he was staying at. There have been several other higher profile deaths connected to the Besa Mafia, like Amy Louise Allwine. She was the wife of Pastor Stephen Allwine, and in May 2016, the FBI would knock on her door to inform her that someone had bought a kill order on her on the dark web. She too would eventually end up dead, but in that case, it was revealed that her husband had not only ordered the hit, but had ultimately been the one to murder her after realizing he had been scammed. Every death attached to the Besa Mafia more or less plays out in that fashion. Someone places a hit, realizes it's not going to happen, and so they take matters into their own hands. That is except for Brian Njoroge. He's the only death that wasn't ruled a murder. It's certainly possible that the police's official story about Brian could be true, but wouldn't it be a crazy coincidence that somebody paid thousands of dollars to take out a hit on him just 1 week before his death? Samuel Njoroge, Brian's father, maintains that the police investigation was fishy from the beginning, and he disputes their official narrative for his son's death. He's also previously stated that there's a number of inconsistencies between the police report and the coroner's autopsy, but those details have never been publicly revealed. Brian was buried in the Dallas-Fort Worth National Cemetery on June 19, 2018.
That's where I am.
No charges have ever been filed in this case.
Cemetery.
Toonbib has never been identified, and the police ended their correspondence with independent investigators by stating, "We're done with this case." I'm curious, what do you think happened here? Is this a case of a real hit being carried out? Or is the police's version of events true? Or is there some third possibility that hasn't been brought up yet? Let me know what you think in the comments. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and you want to get more content like this recommended to you on
not
YouTube,
really.
consider
It's about
subscribing.
murder and the dark web and Fucking.
Welcome back to Slop Live. Today's Slopic, we have an update on the backroom situation. If you didn't see, basically a couple of Redditors complained that over on Redbubble, their creations had been copyright striked by A24 for supposed IP violation, even though the content was simply just backroom stuff that had nothing to do with the actual movie. Kane Parsons, the director, even responded saying it should not be happening and that he's looking into this. I said in my video that it was most likely due to an automated error. Well, it turns out a lot more also happened around the same time. A Backrooms fan page on Twitter was suspended, and some devs behind Backrooms games claimed that A24 had taken down their Google Play developer account over some Backrooms themed horror games. So with all these things combined, it seemed like A24 was going on an unwarranted copyright spree. This entire situation even gained a lot of attention over on the r/movie subreddit, with the caption, Backrooms devs reportedly hit
valid
copyright
crown
claims from A24. So people began gathering their pitchforks. Anyway, a little while after my video about the Redbubble situation, Kane Parsons made a few more comments on Discord, saying that A24 had confirmed to him the wallpaper takedowns were an outsourced system error in pursuit of removing cameras, and that anything else was somehow not them, saying A24 were adamant they would never affect the community and have always been on their side, saying he's confident that it's a mistake, though mistakes should not be allowed, and that A24 were working rapidly to resolve it and would probably issue a statement. Well, A24 did just that, posting
the 305
the official Backrooms movie Instagram and Twitter, saying, as Kane Parsons has made clear, Backrooms is one part of an infinitely bigger ecosystem, rife with creatives who have every right to tell their own version of the story. Yesterday, we were made aware of an automated claim submitted to Redbubble. We immediately began the process to reverse it and reinstate the listing. A24 makes no claim of ownership of the yellow wallpaper, the original post referencing it, or any of the community works that have since been built around it. We will continue to support the artists who, like Kane, were inspired by it. So that explains the Redbubble situation, but what about the other takedowns? Well, it seems this was all just bad coincidental timing. The fan account that was taken down got their account back, and even specified that A24 got in touch with them when they found out the account had been suspended, and helped get it restored. A24 also saying that they didn't initiate the suspension in any way. As for the Backrooms games over on Google, apparently this actually happened weeks prior, and they've edited their original Reddit post to clarify it was allegedly an automated error on Google's side. A lot of automated errors these days. I wonder what could possibly be causing them. Kane also backed that it seemed to be an unfortunate coincidence and bad timing, but reiterating that people should hold steady in their resistance to any form of unjust Backrooms IP capture, no matter how slight. So it looks like we don't have to worry. For now, anyway. I also reached out to Kane Parsons to clarify his age, but received no response, so I guess that will forever be a mystery. Thanks.
Funny. All right. Alright. Oh, I came back just in time. Food is not ready. It was about to be ready though. Okay. Go. Got high level dungeons to clear. Damn, level 50? I have no memory of this place. I thought we were gonna fight them. I just wasted a fuckload of my abilities. Basically nothing. It's a go-boo. Memory of this place. Oh, I did that. Eat more popcorn. Caramel popcorn. That's what my character apparently... Hundreds of bowls of caramel popcorn. These tonberries are fine. Come up to that tonberry king though. I don't know, do we fight the tonberry king here? We might. This may be the tonberry king area. For good. I'm unclear. Yeah, I think this is actually the Tonberry King level. we gotta deal with some of this shit. Be running around everywhere. No, it's tempting. A very, very uncoordinated party. The creme brulee, or oh, it's the bravois. My mistake. Thornberry King time. Old TB. Okay. Got him in his cute little hat. Okay. Going down pretty quick. Damn. Went down really fast. Nothing of use. Except I did get tomestones. And people haven't tried a little bit. Oh, why? Minna. I need my conservator's gloves, please. Okay. Take these out. We put the and we'll throw these bard gear in the special room. I got 80 and I need 345. Okay, I can get one from a normal hit a little. See if we got anything else to watch. What's everybody doing today? Thing? I watch a timeline that watched one of this in a while. Say from the 60s. Everything that happened in
Radiation
1960.
produced by nuclear weapons presents a revolutionary threat to our planet.
Let me tell you what's happening. What's happening?
The guard, under the pressure of a rock-throwing attack, panicked and fired its weapons indiscriminately.
The 1960s are often referred to as turbulent, but that may be an underselling. A bumpy ride on an airplane is turbulent. The 1960s were an insane ball of ever-churning chaos. A decade marked by rebellion and upheaval in the worlds of politics, music, movies, science, and, well, just about everything else. And it all started in 1960, the year that saw the first patent for a laser, the first Grand Slam in a World Series, and Nixon and Kennedy duking it out for the soul of America in a presidential election, not mano a mano. Although that would have been entertaining.
If the present trend continues, Senator Kennedy will be the next president of the United States.
We're going to take you through the news, culture, sports, entertainment, and all that was weird in 1960. Because this is Timeline. Hope you like doing the twist, because this one is all about 1960. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know what aspects of the 60s you're most interested to hear about in the comments below. Now, are you ready to learn what happened
Andy
the
Griffith
year
Show.
the Andy Griffith Show premiered?
You just listen to your Paul, son. You'll never go wrong.
I grew up on the Andy Griffith Show.
The 1960s kicked off in the spirit of liberation as the colony formerly known as French Cameroon became independent from France on January 1st. Representatives of the UN, the US, and the USSR, all of whom had already agreed to recognize the new country, were on hand to watch as Cameroonian officials marked the occasion by lowering the French flag and replacing it with their own.
Good for them.
After the revolution of 1952, Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser made a priority out of building a high dam across the Nile River. The project threatened countless archaeological monuments that line the Nile, and the ensuing controversy sparked an international effort to save as many as possible before construction began on January 9, 1960. The Aswan High Dam was completed in 1970 and is still one of the world's largest embankment dams. On February 1st, 4 black students initiated a sit-in at the Woolworths in Greensboro, North Carolina, with the aim of changing the company's segregational policy. They were soon joined by hundreds of sympathizers for what would become the most famous sit-in of the civil rights movement. On July 25th, after incurring over $200,000 in losses, the Greensboro Woolworths desegregated, inviting 4 employees to be the first black customers served at the lunch counter.
Signor, ma nella vita che vi piace di più? What's the thing you like most in life?
I like lots of things, but there are 3 things I like most. Love, love, and love.
Construction of the Hollywood Walk of Fame began in 1958, but the walk wouldn't officially open until February 8, 1960. It would then be more than a month until the first official star, honoring High Noon director Stanley Kramer, would be installed at Hollywood Boulevard and Gower Street. On February 13th, France completed its first successful nuclear test, codenamed Gerboise Bleue. The test, which saw a plutonium bomb detonated on a steel tower, was completed in the Sahara Desert. An eyewitness later reported that the desert was lit up by a vast flash, followed 45 seconds later by an appreciable shock wave, and an enormous ball of bluish fire with an orange-red center, followed by a mushroom cloud. Only the US, Soviet Union, and UK achieved nuclear capabilities before France did. Since the French test, however, 5 other nations have joined the nuclear club. These include China, India, Israel, Pakistan, and most recently, North Korea on October 9th, 2006.
What these firing of the rockets have done is they've isolated themselves further, and that's sad for the people of North Korea.
By 1960, Frank Sinatra had had enough of Capitol Records. So on February 13th, he founded his own label, Reprise Records. Sinatra's first recording for the label was the album Ring-a-Ding-Ding, which unusually featured only up-tempo numbers and no ballads. And it was after Reprise's first record was released that people started referring to Sinatra as the chairman of the board. On March 4th, after 20 years of marriage,
I could be playing,
Lucille Ball filed for divorce from her one-time I Love Lucy co-star, Desi Arnaz. The pair, by all accounts, were deeply in love and had 2 children, but due to Arnaz's alcoholism and womanizing, their relationship became tumultuous. Their divorce was one of the highest profile of the era.
Well, Elvis, that's our little welcome home gift. 2 years you lost while you were in the Army. And looking back over it, I'm struck with the realization that maybe you didn't miss so much after all. As a matter of fact, what you seem to have lost is your sideburns.
In March of 1958, Elvis Presley was drafted. To his credit, the King performed most of his military service in West Germany, where he served in the 3rd Armored Division, rather than perform for the troops as part of special services, as most other drafted entertainers
Why
did.
can't I
Everybody thought I wouldn't have to work and I would be given special treatment and this and that. But when they looked around and saw I was on KP and I was pulling guard and everything just like they were, well, they figured, well, he's just like us.
Elvis was then honorably discharged in 1960 on March 5th. More than 1,000 sailors lost their lives when the USS Arizona was attacked at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. A memorial was planned, but by 1960, less than half of the money required had been raised. Known for his generosity, the King agreed to stage a benefit for the cause at Hawaii's Block Arena on March 25th, 1961. Only his second live performance in more than 3 years. Along with a personal donation from Presley himself, the concert raised enough money to complete the memorial.
This episode of Timeline is brought to you by...
When your Bronco Buster skins an elbow, instead of struggling with stinging tincture of iodine, now you can change this to this in a hurry with new Instant Metaquick, the complete first aid spray. Metaquick sprays away pain with Xylocaine. Use Mediquick to prevent infection as you spray away pain. Mediquick takes the sting out of sunburn. Mediquick, the complete first aid spray.
In 1959, Fidel Castro seized power in Cuba by overthrowing dictator Fulgencio Batista. Castro's close relationship with Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev, however, made the U.S. uneasy. So on March 17th, President Eisenhower approved a plan to train Cuban exiles for an invasion of their former homeland. The CIA believed Cubans would overthrow Castro and set up a U.S.-friendly government. And if you're wondering how that went, come back to the timeline about 1961. On March 21st in Sharpeville, South Africa, police opened fire on a crowd of roughly 5,000 people protesting an internal passport system designed to racially segregate the country. Protesters were told that they would be addressed by a government official, but instead, police fired nearly 1,400 rounds into the crowd, killing at least 91 and wounding at least 238. In 1959, producer Berry Gordy, tired of watching record labels profit off his work, started releasing his own recordings under the imprints Tamla and Motown. And on April 14, 1960, Gordy merged the two companies into one, which he incorporated under the name Motown Records. Motown would then score its first hit that September with Shop Around, recorded by the Miracles. Remember when we told you about Elvis getting drafted in 1958? Well, just 2 years later, on April 14th, Bye Bye Birdie opened on Broadway, and it was about an Elvis-like rock star getting drafted. It's notable for originating the standard Put on a Happy Face, and for being the first Broadway musical to include rock and roll in its score. Bye Bye Birdie was a massive success, so 20 years after it came out, someone decided it needed a sequel. That was a rare move for Broadway musicals then, and still is. And Bring Back Birdie might be why. The production drew scathing reviews and closed after just 4 performances.
What are we doing?
Shocked by the death of a high school student killed by police for protesting a rigged election, South Korean students and labor groups began a protest against President Syngman Rhee on April 11th in the city of Masan. It reached Seoul on April 18th, and the following day over 100,000 students marched in support. Police opened fire, killing 180 and wounding thousands. After that, Rhee's Minister of Defense demanded Rhee's resignation, which he received on April 26th. On April 24th, 1960, a protest aimed to desegregate the beaches of the Mississippi Gulf Coast turned violent when white mobs attacked the black beachgoers, including women, children, and the elderly. Police stood by and watched, eventually arresting 10 times as many blacks as whites. The event was described by the New York Times as the worst racial riot in Mississippi history. On May 1st, the Soviet Union shot down an American U-2 spy plane and captured pilot Francis Gary Powers. The U.S. claimed the plane was a civilian weather research aircraft.
Of military forces and preparation
around
the world. No one wants another Pearl Harbor.
In 1957, President Eisenhower signed the Civil Rights Act of 1957, designed to enforce the voting rights of African Americans. That act, however, left several loopholes which states exploited to deny those rights. So on May 6th, Eisenhower signed the Civil Rights Act of 1960, which allowed for federal inspection of local voter registration, while establishing penalties for anyone who attempted to block another's attempt to register. On May 9th, the U.S. became the first country to legalize birth control pills when the FDA approved the sale of the Inovid 10 for contraceptive use. Despite the approval, the pill wouldn't be available to married women in all states until the Supreme Court's 1965 ruling in Griswold v. Connecticut, and to unmarried women until their 1972 ruling in Eisenstadt v. Baird.
Down here.
I could no longer be satisfied or go along with an evil system. And in spite of all of this, I had to keep loving the people who denied me service.
February 13th saw the start of the Nashville Sit-ins, a series of protests aimed at ending racial segregation at Nashville, Tennessee's lunch counters.
They come in and they sit down, and we're not used to them sitting down beside us because I wasn't raised with them.
And then they come in, sit down beside it, as any human being would do. You cause no violence, you have no angry words. It sort of helps to project the idea that here sits beside me another human being.
Over the course of the protests, roughly 150 students would be arrested, and the home of one of their lawyers would be bombed. However, thanks to negotiations between the protest leaders and the business community, those lunch counters started serving black customers on May 10th.
This episode of Timeline is brought to you by...
Hey, kids, look what's new. A brand new cereal just for you. Twinkles, the new star-shaped cereal in the storybook package. Taste those golden little stars, filled with the goodness of energy oats and corn. Remember, only Twinkles has the storybook package. Just tear the magic line, and your storybook opens. Twinkles, the new star-shaped cereal in the storybook package.
On May 11th, the Israeli intelligence service Mossad captured Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann, who was hiding in Argentina. Tipped off by a German Jew living in Argentina who believed his daughter's friend was Eichmann's son, the Israelis abducted Eichmann near his home. They then held him in a Buenos Aires villa for 9 days before putting him on a plane to Israel to stand trial for his crimes.
Es war ein unglücklicher Mensch gewesen.
Eichmann would then be executed for those crimes in 1962. Paul McCartney met John Lennon in 1957 and joined John's band, the Quarrymen. Soon thereafter, they added George Harrison on guitar, Stuart Sutcliffe on bass, and Pete Best on drums. Sutcliffe suggested calling the group Beatles, spelled B-E-A-T-A-L-S. But the band instead called themselves the Silver Beatles, spelled B-E-E-T-L-E-S. They tinkered with the name until June 2nd, 1960, when they played their first show as The Beatles, spelled B-E-A-T-L-E-S.
There it is.
In 1952, American businessman Martin Bromley and his partners established Service Games of Japan to make gaming machines for U.S. military bases in Japan. The company was dissolved in May 1960 due to a criminal investigation. But on June 3rd, Bromley established Nihon Kikai Seizo, another game manufacturer doing business under the name Sega, a contraction of service and games. By the 1980s, Sega was making arcade games. But the sector hit a downturn in 1982, so they decided to explore the burgeoning home video game market. On July 15th, 1983, the same day Nintendo released their Famicom, Sega released their first console, the SG-1000. Interestingly, Sega originally planned to include a keyboard with the SG-1000, but changed their minds when they heard Nintendo's system would be for games only.
Love me some Sega.
What did you do to your hair?
It's making me nervous, so I chopped it off. Big mistake, huh?
Oh, I don't like it.
You've got a Lulu.
Huh? Yeah, better not get too close.
Watch your step. And watch your hands, Mr. Kirkby.
I beg your pardon?
One of these days, I'm going to shut these doors on you and...
In 1959, Alfred Hitchcock acquired the film rights to Robert Bloch's novel Psycho. Paramount, however, refused to provide the director with his requested budget, so Hitchcock opted to personally finance the movie, filming it in black and white with the considerably cheaper crew of his television series, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Despite mixed reviews, Psycho, which opened June 16th, is now regarded as one of the greatest horror films of all time. Huckleberry Hound was created by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera in 1958 and debuted in that year's Huckleberry Hound Meets Wee Willie, the first episode of the Huckleberry Hound show.
No gorilla's gonna outsmart Officer Huckleberry Hound.
On June 20th, 1960, the series would win the Emmy for Outstanding Achievement in the field of children's programming, making it the first animated series to ever win an Emmy.
One book, the last few years, has been so warmly embraced by tens of millions of people.
On July 11th, Harper Lee published her debut novel, To Kill a Mockingbird, which tells the story of Atticus Finch, a lawyer defending a black man accused of sexually assaulting a white woman. Despite its explicit themes and numerous efforts to ban it, the book became a massive success, winning a Pulitzer Prize in 1961 and being adapted
I didn't
into
want
an
any of
Oscar-winning
that.
film in 1962. Inspired by a pencil mark left on a light switch through a decal, French inventor André Cassagna designed a toy that used aluminum powder to create a similar effect on a piece of plastic. Best of all, the marks disappeared when the toy was shaken. Cassagna called it the Magic Screen, but the Ohio Art Company renamed it Etch-a-Sketch, and their first model rolled off the assembly line on July 12th.
All
In
right, I'll be back.
1959,
And it's ready. I'll be
SWRD
back
Banderanita
in about